couple of days ago, I told the story of how Jimi Hendrix might have been murdered. Along with that video, I also put a balancing article in the video description. For those that thought I was a conspiracy theorist believing it blindly, I referred them to the link. However, only my dear friend Music Therapy Laz actually followed that link and read the balancing argument. As I always say on my channel, we're all about the truth and nothing more. As Extreme said in their album title and song, there are three sides to every story: yours, mine and the truth, which lies somewhere between. Today I'm going to give you some further insight into the counter story. Hopefully this will allow you to make up your mind about the real truth over Hendrix's death.
If my voice sounds at all peculiar, it is because I have an upper motor neuron disorder, and speech can be an issue.
Firstly, I must apologise to those of you who took my initial story as total gospel. I promise I wasn't trying to dupe you. The way I told it was exactly as it had been put across in the documentary I saw on Amazon Prime. It goes to show that it's vital that we look at both sides of any given story. This is what I'm doing with the other story about the Monterey Strat. I'm trying to be fair to the current owner of Strat X and get to the truth of the story. So this is what we'll do today, using elements of the information from the link I put in the original video description. Firstly, let's deal with the idea that Jimi was around 5 hours dead on arrival of the ambulance.
At the inquest into Jimi's death on September 28, 1970, it was stated that he passed away in the ambulance. This had also been confirmed to the press by a hospital spokesperson on the afternoon of the 18th, and it was confirmed again in the 1990s by the ambulance man who was at Jimi's side as the ambulance sped with lights and siren to the hospital. This was the reason why Jimi was then rushed to the resuscitation room, or emergency room, in a last-ditch attempt to revive him. This fact eliminates the popular myth that Jimi had been dead for hours at the Samarkand Hotel. The function of the resuscitation room is to perform CPR on people who have just stopped breathing and have no pulse but might still have a chance of being resuscitated, before the point of no return. Brain death. Doctors never attempt to revive long-dead corpses that are over an hour, let alone 6 or 7 hours dead, because of the visible signs of livor mortis, aka dependent lividity, skin discoloration and rigor mortis, stiffness of the jaw, neck, limbs, which would inform them that the person is completely irrecuperable. Prior to admission, arrivals are always triaged and bodies exhibiting those signs are sent directly to the morgue. Jimi obviously exhibited none because he had just passed away in the ambulance, or at the Samarkand shortly before or after the ambulance arrived. This simple fact has been overlooked for decades.
These are really good points that should not be overlooked. Someone who's been dead for hours would not have had any attempt at resuscitation. Now let's look at the sources for the murder case against James Tappy Wright and Dr. Bannister.
1. The ex-roadie Tappy Wright, who by his own admission invented a murder story in order to help the sales of his book. 2. The ex-Dr. Bannister, who was on trial for fraud when he came forward with his story 20 years after the tragedy. His story didn't correspond at all with what the ambulance staff or the other hospital staff had stated, nor with the coroner's report, nor the autopsy. This convicted fraud did a lot of damage to the understanding of what really happened. Doctors trying to revive someone who has been dead for 5 or 6 hours. That would be a medical first. Pumping wine out of a long dead stiff in the resuscitation room of an emergencies ward. Totally unheard of.
Further, let's look at the alleged guy who ordered the murder, Mike Jeffries. It was a known fact that he was very controlling of Hendrix, but isn't that the role of a manager? The vital bit of information relates to him being involved in the Secret Services.
Another fantasy is that Mike Jeffrey once worked for the British Secret Service during his army days. During his 60s, 70s music business career, Jeffrey was known for his dodgy methods, as being a scheming, ruthless businessman and skilled moneymaker. He liked to use methods of intimidation and would brag that he used to be in the Secret Service during his national service. But for that we must trust in Mike Jeffrey's word, when no trace of this exists. However, detailed research has revealed that he in fact was nothing more than a regular soldier who never rose above the very low rank of private. Even Jimi attained the higher rank of private first class.
Next, let us look into the idea that Jimi's lungs and stomach stomach were full of red wine. There is medical evidence against this theory. For this, we have the evidence from Dr. Michael D. Hunter, who's performed over 4,000 autopsies and also testified in several major criminal trials. His detailed report was made public on the Reels TV documentary titled Autopsy: The Last Hours of Jimi Hendrix. The documentary allegedly provides proof that Jimi wasn't drowned in wine.
Considering that Jimi had been forcibly waterboarded with red wine, Dr. Hunter says that such an aggression would have been revealed in the autopsy by an elevated level of alcohol in the blood. This means that the relatively short time of such a drowning is long enough for the stomach and lungs to absorb alcohol in great quantities. The autopsy report notes 5 mgs 100 milliliters in Jimi's blood, which Dr. Hunter points out are low levels and not compatible with drowning in wine. Dr. Hunter also states that if Jimi forcibly drowned in wine, there would be visible signs of struggle, injury, but there were none on Jimi. There's no evidence of injury on him. We can pretty much rule out that there is inflicted trauma that resulted in the death. There of course wasn't any trace of wine in the fluids that were found in Jimi's lungs and stomach during Professor Ter's autopsy in September 1970.
So what was the alleged cause of death according to the regular sources and the hospital?
Dr. Hunter says that Jimi's heart dilation could have been caused by drug consumption. The autopsy revealed no presence of chemicals that would indicate consumption of LSD, heroin or cocaine, but there was a trace of the amphetamine Durafit, street name Black Bomber, in Jimi's urine. This was likely given to Jimi by Devon Townsend at Pete Cameron's party. There was also a presence in Jimi's blood of the barbiturate quinylbarbital from Monica Danman's Vesperax sleeping tablets. Hunter sees the latter as being the actual cause of Jimi's death, saying, "I have no doubt that Vesperax is what killed Jimi, and that the inhalation of vomit was not the reason why he died." Jimi's lungs did inhale vomit, but only after the brain had been fatally damaged by the chemicals in the Vesperax tablets. Jimi Hendrix died, not as a result of him choking on vomit but of polydrug toxicity, which led to his respiratory failure and his death. In summing up, Dr. Hunter says that from evidence that is there, we can discount murder.
But what about Monica Danman? Wasn't her story changed many times? Why was this, and what is her part in it? Did she act as an agent for Mike Jeffries and intentionally give Hendrix an overdose? Or was she desperate, knowing that the affair between her and Jimi was over? It's alleged that she gave Hendrix the pills and red wine in order to keep him at her flat longer. It's also alleged that she had no idea that this would kill him. Was Hendrix's death actually a complete accident, or indeed manslaughter by Monica? I'm not sure that we'll ever know what happened, as everyone with information is now dead. Please take the time to watch both documentaries and also read the article, which I'll put in the description again. This way you can make an informed and balanced decision. Given these additional facts, how do you now feel about the death of our legend Jimi Hendrix? As always, it's vital that we consider both sides of every story. I'm intrigued to know what you think in the comment section down below. Have I balanced the story? Which account do you believe? I look forward to reading your comments, and I'll answer as many as I can. And I'll see you on the next video.